Bismillahir Rahmanir Rahim. In the name of Allah, the most kind, the most merciful. Sorry, I'm just multitasking at the same time. Assalamu alaikum, everyone. Peace be upon everyone. Islam acknowledges that life is full of suffering, starting as early as the very process of human conception in a mother's womb and during the process of childbirth. In the Holy Quran, we read in chapter 46, verse 15, "And we have enjoined upon man to his parents good treatment. His mother carried him with hardship and gave birth to him with hardship." For Muslims, all the tragedy, affliction, anguish, grief, and fear that we may have to go through in this life are actually tests and trials from God. If we succeed in the test by remaining prayerful and patient, showing complete perseverance and trust in God during the period of suffering, and we continue doing good deeds and we avoid evil thoughts and actions, then the end result is that God grants us boundless joy, happiness, and his everlasting pleasure. In the Holy Quran, it states in chapter 2, verses 156 and 157, "And we will surely test you with something of fear and hunger, and a loss of wealth and lives and fruits. But give glad tidings to the patient, who when disaster strikes them, they say, indeed we belong to Allah, and indeed to him we will return." And in another place it says, "Or do you think that you will enter paradise while such trial has not yet come to you as came to those who passed on before you? They were touched by poverty and hardship and were shaken until even their messenger and those who believed with him said, when is the help of Allah? Unquestionably, the help of Allah is near." While facing difficulties in life, whether it is financial, physical, or mental health related, relationships, inner or outer struggle, we are reminded of the verse in the Quran which states in chapter 2, verse 286, "God burdens not an individual more than his capability." Hope is an intrinsic value when dealing with depression and mental illnesses. One of the key principles or articles of faith is hope. Hope in the notion that there is God, the Almighty, the merciful Creator that will guide you, give you strength in times of darkness and despair. It is a simple notion, but an effective one. And this verse teaches us that no human being is burdened with troubles and difficulties more than what they can bear. And this statement exhibits and gives way to great optimism against initially thinking you are not able to manage your trial. It gives the human being the strength to believe and maintain in being able to bear the trials and many unthinkable burdens they initially felt they could not bear. Allah Almighty states in the Quran, again in chapter 2, verse 186, "When my servants ask you concerning me, tell them I am indeed close to them. I listen to the prayer of every supplicant when he calls upon me." And in another place in chapter 3, verse 171, it states, "God alone is sufficient for us, and he is the best disposer of affairs for us." And in another one, in chapter 13, verse 28, "Those who believe and whose hearts find satisfaction in the remembrance of God, for without doubt, in the remembrance of God do hearts find satisfaction." All these verses remind us when we face difficulties to turn to God for help by calling upon him. After all, he is our creator and he is the one who can bring us out of the difficulties. We place our trust in him and our hearts are eased and find satisfaction in his remembrance. These verses also build upon the reassurance that our pain will not go unnoticed in the eyes of God, the most merciful, the compassionate. What comes from this is also hope, a powerful instrument that disrupts and thwarts mental behavioral moods. We use the 5 daily prayers as a means to become more hereafter orientated, and less attached to this temporary world. We start to distance ourselves as soon as we hear the adhan, the call to prayer. When we perform ablution and we repeat the shahada, the declaration of faith, as water drops slip down our hands, our face and arms and hair, when we stand ready to pray, mentally prepare ourselves to leave this world and all of its worries and stresses behind us. The 5 daily prayers help us to take the focus away from the world and all the problems and worries. At that time, we are brought into the reality of this life as servants of God, waiting for union with Him. So these are some of the teachings of Islam that help us as individuals to be mentally strong. But alongside this, we are to seek medical intervention. As the Holy Prophet Muhammad, peace be upon him, said, "There is no disease that God has created except that He has also created its remedy." We are also instructed to visit, comfort, and support those who are ill, whether physically or mentally. Hazrat Anas ibn Malik narrates that a woman who had a defect in her brain, it must have been a way that people at the time understood mental illness, said that the messenger of God, "I want to talk to you." He said, "Mother of so-and-so, choose on which side of the road you would like to stand and talk, so that I may fulfill your need." He stood with her on the sidewalk and she spoke to her heart's content. So this shows that the Prophet never discriminated between a mentally ill person. As long as this woman conversed with him patiently, he continued to listen. And Anas used to tell of the Prophet, peace be upon him, that he would visit the sick. In another hadith, in another tradition, it says, the Prophet in his visits did not discriminate against ailing people. He even visited sick non-Muslims. So the teachings of Islam, the Prophet Muhammad, peace be upon him, are an inspiration to all Muslims today. We try our best to emulate him, and this is why so many Muslims devote their time and energy to help others. This pandemic has been another prime example of that. Mosques set up food banks, temporary mortuaries, provided whole space for beds for those who are unwell, provided financial and moral support to all those in their community, regardless of faith or background. These are the true teachings of Islam, which help us to maintain a healthy and balanced life.